My childhood best friend betrayed me and stole my fiancé. Now they're divorced, broke, and she's applying for a job at my thriving company. I'm a 32-year-old woman. Let's call my ex-best friend Sarah and my ex-fiancé Tom. Sarah and I had been best friends since we were 5 years old. We grew up together, shared secrets, supported each other through tough times, and were inseparable throughout school. She was the sister I never had. Tom and I met in college. We hit it off immediately, and after graduation, we started dating. Sarah was thrilled for us, or so I thought. She was always there, cheering us on, helping plan dates, and even assisting Tom in picking out my engagement ring when he proposed after 4 years together. Life seemed perfect. I had a great job at a tech startup, a loving fiancé, and the best friend anyone could ask for. Sarah was my maid of honor, and she threw herself into wedding planning with enthusiasm. Looking back, I should have seen the signs, but I was too blinded by happiness and trust. 2 months before the wedding, I came home early from a business trip. I was excited to surprise Tom, maybe have a nice dinner together. Instead, I was the one who got the surprise of a lifetime. I walked into our apartment to find Tom and Sarah in our bed. The world shattered around me. The confrontation that followed was ugly. There were tears, screaming, and accusations flying everywhere. Sarah claimed it had only happened once, that they were drunk and made a mistake. Tom begged for forgiveness, saying it meant nothing. But the look they exchanged told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a one-time thing. I called off the wedding, packed my bags, and left. The next few months were a blur of pain, betrayal, and anger. I threw myself into work, barely eating or sleeping. My colleagues were worried, but I couldn't bring myself to explain what had happened. The shame and humiliation were too much. To add insult to injury, Tom and Sarah started dating openly just a month after our breakup. They moved in together, flaunting their relationship on social media. Mutual friends were torn, but many sided with them, believing their story that I had been neglectful and that they had found true love. I lost not just my fiancé and best friend, but a significant portion of my social circle. I was at rock bottom, but something inside me refused to give up. I channeled all my pain and anger into my work. I worked harder than I ever had before, taking on extra projects, learning new skills, and pushing myself to the limit. My bosses noticed, and within a year, I had received 2 promotions. As I focused on my career, I also started therapy to deal with the trauma of the betrayal. It was a long, difficult process, but slowly, I started to heal. I learned to trust again, made new friends, and even started dating casually. 3 years after the incident, my hard work paid off in a big way. The startup I worked for was acquired by a major tech company, and as one of the key employees, I received a substantial payout. With my newfound financial security, I decided to take a risk and start my own company. It wasn't easy, but I poured everything I had into my business. Late nights, countless meetings, and more than a few moments of doubt, but I persevered. Slowly but surely, my company began to grow. We developed innovative software solutions for small businesses, and word of mouth spread quickly. 5 years after starting my company, we were thriving. We had offices in 3 cities, a staff of over 100 people, and a reputation for excellence in our field. I was featured in several business magazines as a rising star in the tech world. Life was good, and I had finally moved past the pain of my past. Then, out of the blue, I received an email that made my blood run cold. It was from Sarah, asking if we could meet for coffee. She said she had something important to discuss. Against my better judgment, and after consulting with my therapist, I agreed to meet her. Sarah looked different. Gone was the confident, bubbly woman I once knew. In her place was someone who looked tired, stressed, and much older than her 32 years. As we sat down, she burst into tears and began to apologize profusely for everything she had done. Through her sobs, I learned what had happened over the past 8 years. She and Tom had gotten married 6 months after I caught them. At first, things were good. They were in love, and everyone praised them for following their hearts. But the honeymoon phase didn't last long. Tom, it turned out, wasn't the perfect man I had thought he was. He had a gambling problem that he had hidden from me throughout our relationship. With Sarah, he no longer felt the need to hide it. He gambled away their savings, maxed out credit cards, and even took out loans in Sarah's name. Their marriage quickly became toxic. They fought constantly about money, and Tom's gambling only got worse. Sarah tried to leave several times, but Tom always managed to guilt her into staying, reminding her of how they had gotten together and how she owed him. Finally, after 5 years of marriage, Sarah had enough. She filed for divorce, but by then, The damage was done. They were deeply in debt, their credit was ruined, and they had alienated most of their friends with their constant drama. The divorce was messy and drawn out. Tom tried to claim that Sarah had known about his gambling all along and was equally responsible for their debts. In the end, they both walked away with nothing but a mountain of debt and bitter memories. As Sarah finished her story, she looked at me with pleading eyes. "I know I have no right to ask this," she said, "but I heard your company is hiring. I've been struggling to find work because of my poor credit history. Is there any chance at all that you might consider giving me a job?" I sat there, stunned. A part of me wanted to laugh in her face, to tell her that she was reaping what she had sown. But another part of me, the part that remembered the little girl who had been my best friend for so many years, felt a twinge of pity. "Sarah," I said slowly, "I appreciate you telling me all this. I won't pretend that it makes everything okay, because it doesn't. What you and Tom did hurt me deeply, and it's taken me years to heal from that betrayal." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "That being said," I continued, "I'm not the same person I was 8 years ago. I've grown, I've healed, and I've learned the value of forgiveness, not for the other person, but for myself." Sarah looked up, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "I can't promise you anything," I said firmly, "but I can tell you this: if you want to apply for a position at my company, your application will be considered fairly, just like anyone else's. You'll have to go through the same interview process, and if you're hired, you'll be on probation like any new employee. There will be no special treatment, no favors. If anything, you'll have to work twice as hard to prove yourself. Can you handle that?" Sarah nodded vigorously. "Yes, absolutely. That's more than I could have hoped for. Thank you so much." As we parted ways, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I realized that by offering Sarah this chance, I wasn't just potentially helping her, I was finally, truly, letting go of the past. The next few weeks were interesting, to say the least. Sarah submitted her application and went through our standard hiring process. I made sure to recuse myself from the decision-making to avoid any conflict of interest. Our HR team and department heads conducted the interviews and assessments. To everyone's surprise, including my own, Sarah excelled in the interview process. She had taken some online courses in digital marketing over the past few years and had been doing freelance work to make ends meet. Her skills were actually quite impressive, and she showed a level of determination that caught the attention of our marketing director. After much deliberation, Sarah was offered an entry-level position in our marketing department. When I heard the news, I had mixed emotions. Part of me was apprehensive about working with her again, but another part was curious to see how things would play out. Sarah's first day was awkward, to say the least. Word had gotten around about our history, though not all the details, and I could feel people watching us, waiting for drama. But there was no drama to be had. We kept things strictly professional, interacting only when necessary for work. As weeks turned into months, something unexpected happened. Sarah proved to be an excellent employee. She was hardworking, creative, and always willing to go the extra mile. She never tried to use our past relationship to gain favors or special treatment. In fact, she seemed to be going out of her way to prove herself on her own merits. Slowly, the office gossip died down. People began to accept Sarah as just another colleague. And I found myself relaxing around her. We weren't friends, that bridge had been thoroughly burned, but we developed a cordial, professional relationship. One day, about 6 months after Sarah started working for my company, she asked if we could talk privately. Curious, I agreed. "I just wanted to thank you," she said, her eyes brimming with tears. "Not just for the job, but for the chance to show you, and myself, that I'm not the same person I was 8 years ago. I know I can never undo what I did, but I want you to know that I regret it every single day. Seeing the amazing woman you've become, the incredible things you've accomplished. It's inspired me to be better." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "I don't expect us to ever be friends again," Sarah continued, "but I hope that maybe, someday, you can look at me and not see the person who betrayed you, but someone who is trying her best to be a good person." As I looked at Sarah, I realized something profound. The anger and bitterness I had carried for so long were gone. In their place was a sense of peace, and yes, even a touch of pride, not just in myself for how far I'd come, but in Sarah for her genuine efforts to change. "Thank you for saying that, Sarah," I said finally. "I think we've both come a long way. Let's just keep moving forward, okay?" She nodded, giving me a watery smile. As Sarah left my office, I leaned back in my chair and let out a long breath. If someone had told me 8 years ago that I would one day be running a successful company, with my ex-best friend as an employee, I would have laughed in their face. Life truly has a way of surprising you. I thought about Tom briefly, wondering where he was and if he had ever gotten help for his gambling addiction. But I quickly pushed those thoughts aside. That chapter of my life was well and truly closed. Looking out my office window at the bustling city below, I felt a sense of excitement for the future. My company was growing, I was surrounded by talented people, including, surprisingly, Sarah, and I had come out the other side of a devastating betrayal stronger than ever. As I turned back to my computer to tackle the mountain of emails waiting for me, I couldn't help but smile. Life hadn't turned out the way I'd planned all those years ago, but maybe, just maybe, it had turned out better. The path to success and healing isn't always straight. Sometimes it's winding, sometimes it doubles back on itself, and sometimes it takes you to places you never expected to go. But as long as you keep moving forward, keep growing, and keep believing in yourself, you'll end up exactly where you're meant to be. And me? I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. Running my company, continuing to grow and learn, and finally, truly free from the weight of the past. It's a good place to be, and I can't wait to see what the future holds. As I turned back to my computer to tackle the mountain of emails waiting for me, I couldn't help but smile. Life hadn't turned out the way I'd planned all those years ago, but maybe, just maybe, it had turned out better. The path to success and healing isn't always straight. Sometimes it's winding, sometimes it doubles back on itself, and sometimes it takes you to places you never expected to go. But as long as you keep moving forward, keep growing, and keep believing in yourself, you'll end up exactly where you're meant to be. And me? I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. Running my company, continuing to grow and learn, and finally, truly free from the weight of the past. It's a good place to be, and I can't wait to see what the future holds. It's been 2 years since I wrote the above, and so much has happened that I feel compelled to update this story. Life, as always, has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. First, let's talk about the company. We've experienced exponential growth over the past 2 years. What started as a small tech startup has now become a major player in our industry. We've expanded to offices in 5 more cities and our staff has grown to over 500 employees. It's been a whirlwind of pitch meetings, product launches, and late nights, but every moment has been worth it. Sarah has been a significant part of this growth. Her work in our marketing department has been nothing short of exceptional. She spearheaded a campaign that went viral, bringing in a flood of new clients and putting our company on the map in a way we never expected. I have to admit, watching her excel in her role has been both surprising and gratifying. Our professional relationship has evolved as well. While we're not friends in the traditional sense, we've developed a mutual respect that I never thought possible after what happened. Sarah has become someone I can rely on in the workplace, someone who understands my vision for the company and works tirelessly to help achieve it. But it hasn't all been smooth sailing. About a year ago, we faced a major crisis when a competitor accused us of intellectual property theft. It was a baseless claim, but the negative press threatened to undo all the hard work we'd put in. I was stressed beyond belief, barely sleeping as I worked with our legal team to clear our name. It was during this time that Sarah truly proved her loyalty, not to me personally, but to the company. She worked around the clock, coordinating with our PR team, reaching out to her contacts in the media, and crafting a strategy to counter the false narrative. Her efforts were instrumental in turning the tide of public opinion back in our favor. One night, as we were burning the midnight oil in the office, Sarah turned to me with a serious expression. "I know you probably don't want to hear this," she said, "but I need to say it. What happened all those years ago? It made me realize how easy it is to destroy something precious. I've spent every day since then trying to build things up instead of tearing them down. This company, this work we're doing. It's my redemption. And I won't let anyone tear it down." Her words hit me hard. For the first time, I saw Sarah not as my former best friend who betrayed me, not as just another employee, but as a woman who had made grave mistakes and was genuinely working to be better. It was a turning point in our professional relationship. As for my personal life, well, that's taken some interesting turns too. About a year and a half ago, I met someone. Let's call him David. He's a client who came to us looking for software solutions for his nonprofit organization. From the moment we met, there was a spark, but I was hesitant to act on it. After everything that happened with Tom, I had built up walls that seemed insurmountable. But David was patient and kind. He never pushed, never pressured. We started as friends, talking for hours about our work, our passions, our dreams. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, those walls started to come down. Our first date was a disaster of epic proportions. We went to a fancy restaurant, and I was so nervous that I knocked over a waiter carrying a tray of drinks. We ended up leaving, soaking wet and smelling of various cocktails, and got hot dogs from a street vendor instead. As we sat on a park bench, laughing at the absurdity of it all, I realized that for the first time in years, I felt truly happy. David and I have been together for a year now, and he's shown me what a healthy, loving relationship looks like. He's supportive of my career, understanding of my past, and he makes me laugh every single day. We're taking things slow, both of us having been burned in the past, but I have hope for our future. Now, here's where the story takes another unexpected turn. Remember Tom? Well, he came back into the picture about 6 months ago, but not in the way you might think. I was at a tech conference in San Francisco, giving a keynote speech about the future of small business software. As I was leaving the stage, I quite literally bumped into someone. I looked up to apologize and found myself face to face with Tom. He looked different. Gone was the charismatic, confident man I had once loved. In his place was someone who looked worn down by life, his hair graying at the temples and deep lines etched into his face. "Hi," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I saw your name on the speaker list. I wasn't sure if it was really you." For a moment, I was transported back to that day when I found him with Sarah, the pain and betrayal washing over me anew. But then, just as quickly, it passed. I realized that I felt nothing for this man, no anger, no resentment, not even pity. He was just someone I used to know. "Hello, Tom," I replied, my voice steady. "It's been a long time." We ended up getting coffee. It was awkward at first, but as we talked, I began to see the full picture of what had happened after Sarah left him. Tom's gambling addiction had spiraled out of control. He'd lost everything: his job, his home, his friends. He'd hit rock bottom and had finally sought help. He was now 2 years sober and working as a counselor for others struggling with gambling addiction. "I owe you an apology," he said, looking me in the eye for the first time. "What I did to you was unforgivable. I was selfish and cruel, and I've regretted it every day since. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know how sorry I am, and how much I admire the person you've become." I nodded, taking in his words. "Thank you for saying that, Tom. I appreciate it. I hope you're finding peace in your new path." As we parted ways, I felt the last piece of my past fall into place. The closure I didn't even know I needed had finally come. When I returned home, I told David about my encounter with Tom. His response was to pull me into a hug and say, "I'm so proud of you. You're the strongest person I know." At work the next day, I found myself recounting the story to Sarah during a rare quiet moment. She listened intently, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm so sorry," she said when I finished. "For everything. I know we've moved past it professionally, but I need you to know that I understand the full weight of what we did to you. Seeing you now, successful and happy. It's what you always deserved." I reached out and squeezed her hand. "We've all grown, Sarah. Let's just keep moving forward." As I sit here writing this update, I'm filled with a sense of wonder at the twists and turns life can take. 8 years ago, I thought my world had ended. I had lost my fiancé and my best friend in one cruel blow. But now, I'm running a successful company, in a loving relationship, and have found a way to coexist peacefully with my past. I've learned that life isn't about avoiding pain or hardship. It's about how you choose to grow from your experiences. Every betrayal, every setback, every moment of doubt, they've all led me to where I am today. And you know what? I wouldn't change a thing. To anyone out there who's going through their own personal hell, who feels betrayed or lost or hopeless, I want you to know this: it gets better. It may not feel like it now, but every day you survive is a victory. Keep pushing, keep growing, keep believing in yourself. Your happy ending might not look like what you initially imagined, but I promise you, it's out there. As for me, I'm excited for what the future holds. There's talk of taking the company public. David and I are discussing moving in together, and I'm even considering writing a book about my experiences in the tech world and life in general. Remember, your story isn't over. It's just getting to the good part.